Good evening, everyone. Hello. Hello. Good evening and welcome to the Onset Protective League's annual Candidates Night. What we're going to do tonight, we actually have a number of races that are unopposed. So what we are going to do is have the first group of 3 candidates come up. Each of these gentlemen are unopposed for their race. They will have 5 minutes each to introduce themselves, and then you may ask any questions that you would like of their office. As always, we do not allow anyone to insult or to challenge the candidates. We ask that the questions be addressed to the office and how you would handle situations for the office. So, first of all, we will have Joe, Deputy Moderator, and Bill for Housing Authority, Bill Lockwood, and Steve, come on up for the assessors. As I said, all 3 are running unopposed, so basically they've already been elected. And they're just here because, as constituents, they are showing their respect for you and your vote.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joseph Ashley, and I'm running for re-election as Deputy Moderator. How quickly time has passed. It seems like just last year I was asking for your vote for the very first time. Today I am here once again to ask you for your vote. As Deputy Moderator, I have had opportunity of presiding over some very important articles and have gained some valuable experience in the process. I hope that by now you have learned to trust me, or at least most of you have learned to trust me, and I hope to continue in the position for a long time to come. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity of attending a mass moderators meeting, which our town hosted. This group consisted of moderators from various towns in the state that meet together in order to brainstorm and push through new legislation. For example, just this year they pushed a new state law which allows moderators to temporarily to call the town meeting in the event of inclement weather. The reason I brought this up was because they were discussing some new things that are going on at other town meetings, such as electronic voting, which is still highly debated, but I doubt that we will be using it in Wareham anytime soon, but it is worthy of reporting because it is a symbol of the new ideas. This year I have also been continuing my education. I had attained my associate's degree from Massasoit Community College in liberal arts and a minor in criminal justice. I have since felt the call to change my course of study, and am now studying a very different kind of law. I am studying to get my bachelor's degree in biblical and theological studies by taking online courses at Liberty University. I plan and have been called to be a pastor. I hope that this does not come to too much of a surprise to most of you. For I will continue to do my best for the people of this town in the position of Deputy Moderator. This year the people of this town will have to make tough financial decisions. We will have to work together to come up with a solution to problems. But I am confident that our principles of democracy will allow fair debate on issues and a fair vote on each of the articles on the town warrant. And together with our town officials, we will solve any problems thrown our way. If you want to continue to advance the principles of democracy and get more young people involved in town affairs, I ask you once again for your vote on Tuesday, April 7th. I'm Joseph James Ashley, and I'm running for re-election as Deputy Moderator. Thank you.
Bill, would you go next, please?
Sure. Good evening. I'm Bill Lockwood. I'm running for re-election as a member of the Housing Authority. I was elected last year, this time, for a one-year term, and as an incumbent, I was appointed in the fall of 2013 by the selectmen to fill an unexpired term. Running this time for a 5-year term, hoping that we can continue some of the good works that we started in the past year and a half since I've been there. I believe we have a good board in place. It's a whole new board over the last year and a half, and very ambitious programs in place. We're working on currently a 2.5 building project at Agawam Village that'll be getting underway in a month or so, which is very exciting for the Housing Authority and the board. That will involve replacement of siding and roofing and windows and doors on 2 of the buildings and roofing on a 3rd building. Previously, I've served this town as chairman of the Onset Blues Festival and a member of the Community Preservation Committee and vice president of the Onset Bay Association and member and chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. And I am an architect. I have practice in Onset. I live in Onset. I've been doing that for about 40 years. I'm married. I have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and looking forward to doing some more things with the Housing Authority. We're in an expansionist mode. Right now, I believe that the community is underserved in terms of its public housing, that we haven't added any units in a long while. I think it's a goal that we need to be working towards. The Housing Authority is about a $500,000 a year enterprise. We have an administrator and staff of several maintenance people. And we manage 103 apartments as well as some voucher programs, accounting for about 60 additional units. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have for me.
We'll have questions at the end, Bill. Thank you.
And whenever that is, I will be happy.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Curry. I'm currently on the Board of Assessors, and I'm running for the election this year. And as Nancy has said, we're all pretty much elected, but at least need one person to check off that box. So then I'll be elected, Nancy. Okay. Basically, a little background on myself. I'm a resident of Rose Point, have been for almost 30 years now. My occupation is real estate appraiser. So basically what I do for a living is appraise properties, evaluate properties, residential, land, outbuildings. In past, I've done small subdivisions. I am a certified residential appraiser with the state, which basically says that I can appraise anything from 0 to whatever number, as long as it's a residential property. I do not do commercials. That's a different license, different type of occupation. On the Board of Assessors, I have been there for, this will be 20 years now, and I've been the chairman for more than 10. Let me give you a little explanation of what the assessors do. Most people, when you hear that all you do is raise my taxes. Unfortunately, taxes aren't our purview. That's the town budget. If you don't like that, see your selectman. But basically what the Assessors Department does, we maintain the record keeping, deeds that come in, Also, we take care of the boat and vehicle excise taxes, so that's set by the state. We process the bills, any type of abatement on those. As the assessor, what we do is we appraise the real estate or the personal property in town. That includes residential homes, vacant lots, commercial properties, which are your stores, little stores in Main Street, the plazas, and also the cranberry growers. Now, a lot of people think that why haven't we raised the values in the cranberry growers? Because they're making money. Unfortunately, the cranberry bogs are set by the state. There's a state agricultural board which actually sets the valuation of the cranberry bogs, and that's the factors that we go by. During the tax season, when the bill goes out, you all know there's the quarterly bills, so the first two you get in July and the one you get due in November are preliminary bills that are half of what the prior year were. And then when your actual tax bill goes out January 1st, we have what is called the abatement process, where basically if you disagree with your valuation, let me stress that, valuation, if the tax bill goes up and you say your taxes are too high, we can't abate any taxes. We basically abate the valuation of your home. If there's any mistakes or imperfections on the property record card, we can abate that. If there was, as an example, if the card said you had a two-car garage, we go by, there's no two-car garage. Well, that will reduce your valuation, which in turn will reduce the taxes. Also, as part of that abatement process, and a lot of people don't realize, is there are exemptions. There's exemptions that are reimbursable by the state. They don't come out of the town money, they get reimbursed by the state. Some of those exemptions are for the blind, seniors over 70, widowers, surviving spouses with children, and the biggest one we have here in town other than the seniors is the veterans. Now with the veterans, they can get anywhere from a 10% to 100% exemption on their property, but they must get a certificate from the VA stating that they were in service and there's some type of disability. The town also has a senior work write-off, which basically if the seniors do some work for the town, they're able to get credit towards their tax bill, which is also processed through the assessor's office. So other than the factor that the assessors are there to raise taxes, there's a big part of that office that we do that a lot of people don't see in the background. Of the taxes and the budget that's out there, the assessors are responsible or estimated about 65% of the revenue that comes into the town is through the assessor's office. Others come from fees or cherry sheets or state aid. So that's pretty much the rundown. I like you to vote for me because I enjoy doing this and would like to continue doing it. So any questions? I'm sure Nancy will field them and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Ouch. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for any of our candidates? Dominic?
Wait a minute. Thank you, sir. To the gentleman running for assessor, you mentioned something that the cranberry bogs are a different rate than, are they a lower or higher rate than just regular land?
Right now, Wareham has only one tax rate, which is residential.
Okay.
In most communities, cranberry bogs would be they're assessed at a commercial valuation. If Wareham were to go to a split rate, which we currently do not have, they would be taxed as a commercial tax rate at a commercial value. So Wareham right now only has one residential rate. So they're being assessed as a tax rate similar to residential homes.
Higher or lower than the residential rate? Same?
You're talking residential rate or a valuation?
Do the cranberry bogs pay higher taxes than higher or lower tax?
The tax rate is the same for both. So there is they don't pay higher because they're commercial. Wareham only has one rate, so they're.
You mentioned it was set by the state. I didn't know if it was different.
It's in the valuation set by the state agricultural department.
Wasn't there talk of change? Residential and commercial taxes?
There has been discussion on that. The assessors present the valuations to the Board of Selectmen, and they determine whether they want to do what they call a residential factor of 1, which would mean everyone is assessed the same tax rate or charged the same tax rate. Typically, in the history of the town that we've gone through, to get the tax rate to change, it would be a benefit to the residential versus the commercial rate. It used to be like an 80% residential and 20% towards commercial. Right now, we're at about an 83 residential, 17% commercial. So even if you were to shift the rate and make the commercial pay a little bit higher, you wouldn't see that much of an effective difference in what the homeowner themselves will be paying.
Anyone else have any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you very much. Our next group of candidates are those who are running unopposed for sewer commissioner. If you remember correctly, town meeting passed this, and now we have sewer commissioners, but we have a number of folks who are running unopposed. So no, Dominic, you're running. Oh, okay. Okay. Jim Gibberti, Donna Bronk is unable to be here tonight. But Jim Gibberti is a non-sewer user commissioner running for a 3-year term. Donna Bronk is a sewer user commissioner for a 2-year term. We also have Malcolm White, who is an at-large sewer commissioner for a 2-year term, and Marilyn Jordan, who would be a sewer user commissioner 1-year term. Could I have those folks up in front, please? Okay, so Jimmy's not able to make it, and neither is Donna. Dominic, did Donna ask you to make a statement for her? Okay, all right. Thank you, dear. Just us. Okay, so we have Malcolm and Marilyn. You each have 5 minutes to introduce yourself, and then the folks will ask questions if they have any. Let me see. Marilyn, you go first, and then Malcolm.
Okay, good evening. As Nancy told you, I'm running for a 1-year term as a sewer commissioner, and I am a sewer user. And I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of who I am, what I am, and why I'm running. My name is Marilyn Jordan. I have been married to my husband Bob for 47 years. I have 4 children and 5 grandchildren. My first introduction to Wareham came in 1955, where at age 7, my parents would rent a summer cottage for a family vacation at Swift's Beach. Then in 1974, my parents purchased a cottage in the Cremisa Park section of Wareham. Loving the area and all it had to offer, my husband and I purchased in 1984 our current home on Sippican Road, again in the Cremisa Park section. Our transition from summer to permanent resident occurred after both of us retired in 2008. My business career has included positions in both the public and the private sector. My background includes employment by the federal government in the Boston office of the Environmental Protection Agency. I was the head of a third-party billing bookkeeping office for a state-sponsored mental health facility, and I retired as a manager and executive assistant in a private sector accounting firm in Newton. My husband is a retired firefighter. My career has also included numerous stints as a community organizer and activist. Of note is my role as organizer and spokesperson for Fair Share in initiating and bringing to a successful conclusion the Monsanto chemical cleanup in Everett. I was the spokesperson and again ran the campaign, the statewide petition to ban inhumane animal leg hold traps in Massachusetts. And most recently, I was very involved in the Oakdale-Cremisa fight to gain justice in the setting of a betterment rate by bringing to town meeting a warrant to correct the inequities of a past sewer betterment mistake. I have been a strong proponent of separating the sewer commissioners from the Board of Selectmen and lent my support in bringing this to town meeting and informing voters of this need. For the past 2 years, I have been a member of the Wareham Finance Committee in an effort to educate myself on the intricacies of Wareham's municipal finances. As a member, I have seen firsthand the financial condition of the town and the challenges we face going forward. The newly formed sewer commissioners have an important job ahead. I believe the task of the newly elected sewer commissioners is to educate themselves and both the sewered and non-sewered Wareham residents so they can make informed decisions at town meeting regarding all of the issues surrounding the water pollution control facility. There are limitations and opportunities the facility faces going forward. We need a non-political sewer commission who will explore all avenues and resources available and who will become technically and financially astute with respect to the enterprise fund and all direct and indirect costs borne by the sewer users. This first year is crucial in setting the tone with the voters, developing their trust, and forming a commission who will structure an effective board of sewer commissioners open to new and innovative ways of sewering Wareham, replacing, relining, and repairing our aging infrastructure, and who will be able to work well with the water pollution control superintendent, the town administrator, the Board of Selectmen, and all concerned citizens in a non-adversarial way. Okay. And last but not least, who will have as their top priority the best interests of the town and its sewer users. I'm ready for the challenge, and I will work very hard to produce a favorable outcome for my fellow Wareham citizens. And although I'm running uncontested, I would appreciate a show of confidence with your vote on April 7th. Thank you. Go get 'em.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me down tonight. My name's Malcolm White. I'm running for the 2-year at-large non-user. And nobody really knows who I am, so I'll give you a little bit of background. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, in the other end of the state that really nobody knows about down here. I attended Springfield College from 1970 to 73. And after I started in construction for a few years, we moved the family to Vermont, and I was up there for 25 years, where I did serve as a selectman, and believe it or not, we were also the sewer commissioners. We were kind of ushering in the Clean Water Act then, so I'm familiar with some of the issues, especially the rate issues. So after being up there for the 25 years, I came back to the area I really love, which is the Cape and the surrounding area. I always spent my summers down here. In '97, I moved down to Bourne. I was there for 10 years, and I moved to West Wareham in 2005. I'm a construction superintendent, and I've been doing that job for about 39 years now, and I can feel it. I'm getting kind of close to the end. The reason why I'm interested in the Sewer Commission is, number one, it was attractive to me because it's a new commission. There's no agenda, no politics, and I think it should remain that way. My expertise and why I was petitioned to run is basically to help with the capital expenditures. I do understand construction, I do understand infrastructure. I'm also concerned in the changes to the rate structure. I want to be involved in that. I'm particularly concerned with fairness. And I've done a little research on it, and it's not quite as simple as you'd think. But I think I can contribute to that. And lastly, I'd like to give something back. I think that's originally why I was a selectman many years ago. And I just feel it's a duty that everybody should do in there. They should serve to some capacity. So again, I appreciate being invited down. I know I'm running unopposed, but I'm glad I came tonight and was able to meet some of the people in town. Thank you.
right, do we have any questions for our two new sewer commissioners? Oh, come on. Oh, thank you, Bob. Okay. Mark? Bob first, and then over there. I didn't see who raised their hand. You did, okay. Bob first.
Hello, my name is Bob Russo. I, of course, live in the Onset section, and I'm a sewer user also. I guess a two-part question to each of you. Have you had any experience in dealing with water resources agencies that will be dealing with the sewer system in the town of Wareham in your past? And number two, what do you see as the greatest challenge or challenges facing each of one of you in this position as a sewer commissioner, as far as the town of Wareham is concerned?
You want to go first, or you want me to go first? Ladies first. As far as the Water Resources Authority, the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, no, I have not worked with them other than, I do have a son who's a plumber. I don't know if that counts. And I have one who's an electrician, so I got, oh, okay, I have one. And I also have an electrician for a son. But I see the Water Resources, the Water Pollution Control Facility as a business, and in that I think I bring a lot of business acumen and a lot of community involvement. My role, I think, is to inform the public, whether you're a sewer user or a non-sewer user, as to why the reasons for the rate change or why the prices went up. I think it's kind of like, oh, well, that's the Water Pollution Control Facility. It's kind of hidden, but for those people who are sewer users, it's not hidden twice a year or if you get a betterment. So I think I have no engineering expertise, but I think that should be left to the professionals, and I think we should, and I will make sure that we go to every resource, and I will do my homework and make sure that whatever passes by the board, that we thoroughly vet it. It's not going to be, we're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of hours on this, because it's going to take, it took a long time to get in the condition it's in with the aging infrastructure, and it's going to take a long time to get it out. It's not going to happen overnight.
What's the greatest challenge in the sewer system?
For me, is not being shrill. I can sometimes come across as angry and shrill, and I don't want to be that way. I sometimes come across as too wordy, as you can tell. And for me, the greatest challenge will be making the people understand why we're doing what we're doing and making it completely transparent. And I do mean transparent as a community activist, and that's how we get our people.
What experience have you had, or have you had any experience in managing a water pollution resources agency like the one you're going to be stepping into for established policy? And what do you foresee as the greatest challenge that Wareham faces in this area? Because it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with.
Again, I have some experience as a sewer commissioner in a little small town where we got into a lot of the same issues. Have I ever dealt with anything around here? Like, have I dealt with the state water resources? No. I've dealt with many municipal sewer facilities, but on the state level, no. And as far as the largest challenge, again, I think it's to get the new rate structure to a level of fairness. Not all effluent is the same, or discharge is the same. And how we're going to do that is one of the biggest challenges to me. Especially when I do have quite a few friends that are users. Some are elderly, so that's a big concern because I'm getting elderly, user or not. And I've given a lot of thought to fixed income because I'm going to be looking at that myself. So that's my biggest challenge.
Getting new people on the board isn't a challenge. It's when you take that position, if you're willing to find the people with the answers and what you need to find, like water pollution, will you seek those people out and find the information that you need so that moving forward with a plan for Wareham, and so that it won't be costly, like change orders that are in a contract, because it's one thing to have a contract, but it's one thing to understand everything in that contract. Will you seek out those people until you do understand that contract before signing that contract? Many things that I read in the contracts, you have 30 days for change. And in the past, those 30 days weren't used to make change until after the contract. Will you make sure that you examine the contracts, examine the things that need to be done with that contract?
Sure. I mean, are you specifically referring to capital improvements?
In with the sewage and their contract, and when you contract out to the lowest bidder. Sometimes when you're getting the lowest bidder, it ends up being the top bidder. And so what I'm saying is, before you adopt that contract, will you examine that contract so that we won't be with high cost down the road, and that we have a good plan that could take us not 2 years into planning, but maybe 10 years or 15 years into planning?
Well, I can assure you that we will do our research. But you have to remember, we are not designers and we are not engineers. But we know how to gather information, and obviously we know how to interpret it. And we would do our best. When you're dealing with things like excavation, there are unforeseen. There are ways of dealing with that with unit prices, et cetera. But absolutely. I'm not a big one to spend money recklessly, but I am big on preventative maintenance. And from what I've read so far, I think they've done a pretty good job at the plant so far with that, and I agree with that. But anything large, anything complicated, we'll look at it to the best of our ability, for sure. The best we can do.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I think any contract that goes past us, we'll read thoroughly. And on top of that, I think we have to use the resources that we have available, and that being our water pollution control superintendent, the past sewer commissioners, the Board of Selectmen. They have a bevy of information and knowledge, I'm sure, which they will be more than happy to share with us. And the town administrator, because there are going to be some pitfalls going forward. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while to get a rate structure. It's going to take a while to put the priorities in place for repairing and replacing broken pipes in Onset, and the most cost-effective way to do it. And certainly, having been the recipient of a contract that wasn't read, I will definitely read it once, twice, 5 times until we get it right.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? All right. Thank you both. The only contested race for sewer user commissioner is the 3-year position. So Susan, would you come up, and Dominic, would you come up, please? Where is Susan? Well, she was notified. Okay, well, Dominic, if you would take 5 minutes to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you see the position is.
Okay. Thank you, and again, on a rainy night, thanks everyone for coming out. A lot of you people know me. I've been in Wareham a long time. I try to give back to the community. I've been on the finance committee for 6 years. I'm presently also on the school committee for Wareham for the upper tech. And I've been known around town to have a big mouth. I say what I say, and I'm not bashful on saying it. As far as the sewer commissioner goes, I think it's it's a million dollar business, and it needs to be run properly. And what a lot of people, I've done a lot of research on it, and what a lot of people don't realize, we have some serious problems. Right at the moment, we're probably treating 20 to 30% groundwater. So the amount of water we're treating is, a lot of it's unnecessary, and it's costing us a lot of money. What's happening is when they did the sewer pipes years ago, a lot of them were put below groundwater level, and those pipes settle and crack. So groundwater is leaking into these pipes, and that's a large excess amount of water that we're treating unnecessary. So there's been some studies out in Boston and a few of the other towns that by repairing these pipes, even though it's not cheap, it's a costly undertaking, your rate of return is extremely quick. And I think that that's something that would benefit the town, and also lower the rate. And let's get into the rate for a second. I believe the EDU system is a farce. I mean, it's a dinosaur. I mean, there's only 3 to 5 towns in all of Massachusetts that are still using it. And I know we're dragging on to it, and I think it's time that the sewer commissioners try to put an end to that. I believe that we should pay like your water bill in a certain extent. Water out, water in. And I know that that's going to be hard to do, but like on some of your water bills, you have a minimum. And you have a minimum rate that everyone will pay, and then if you have an excess, you pay excess. You don't, then you just pay the minimum. For instance, right now in EDU system, you have the people next door. 5 girls, a dishwasher, a jacuzzi. The girls are taking showers every day. Next door you have Mr. and Mrs. Jones, elderly. Well, they're using probably a quarter of the water that house is using. They're paying the same sewer rate. Now, to me, that's just not right. And, it's not going to be done overnight. It's something that's going to take, some time and some work. But I do believe that there is a fairer way to, get these rates down. But I still believe that a lot of our cost is to repair the infrastructure. People don't realize that. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of water we're treating for nothing. Doesn't need to be treated. The groundwater needs to stay out of our infrastructure. It wasn't meant to be put in there, and a lot of people don't know that. And as far as the people there doing work right now, I believe Guy Companion is doing a great job. He's for the town. He's good at what he does. But I believe Guy has a problem. And, I've spoken to him on certain times. And it's not just his problem. I believe it's a country's problem. And it's called the union. And I'm sorry, I'm against unions. So I don't know whether or not that's something we can do. But I believe that, to rid the union out of the sewer department is something that'll give you more control. Like I said, I'm against unions, and that's something that people will probably yell at me. Like I said, I put my foot in my mouth all the time, but I believe that that's some way that we're not going to go. I mean, people aren't fired because they're a union. Well, you get fired because you don't do your job. And I don't believe people should hide behind that. And I believe that a union hurts the quality of the workers. But I don't know if that's going to be in the realm of the sewer commissioners or not. But we'll take it one way or the other. But I believe that we should watch our money being spent over there so that the people in Wareham can, lower their rate. And the other thing I want to say is a lot of people say that, everyone, isn't a sewer user. You have septic, you have certain things. Well, what people don't realize is everyone benefits from that sewer plant. We have 50-something miles of coastline. Well, that water is cleaner because of the septic, the sewer. And so why shouldn't everyone pay? So even if you're not on the sewers, I believe that there still should be a fee for everyone in the town of Wareham. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Dominic?
Everything that you've said is so correct, and because you've lived here most of your life, is your decision-making for the residents of Wareham, and will you stick by what you say today?
I think I've already proven that. Like I said, I like to, speak my piece. And I've been on committees, in town, and some people love me and some people don't. But I try to stick by my guns and do the right thing. I'm not a big politic person. I do what I say. And it's for the people.
Is there anyone else with a question? Again, I apologize for Susan not being here. I just checked my phone and I had left a message, 2 of them, in fact, so I don't know why she's not here. No more questions for Dominic? Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Our next race is the school committee. We have 3 candidates running for 2 spots on the school committee. And so if Jeff would come up, and Judith and Julianne, please. Because Jeff is the incumbent, the order of presenting their information will be Judith Ann first, Julianne second, and Jeff Swett third. Okay, ladies. Which one is Judith?
I'm Judy. I go by Judy.
Okay,
Caporiccio.
all right. So Judy's first.
Hi, I'm Judy Caporiccio, and I'm running for school committee.
Could you put that closer?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't have my teleprompter, so I have my note cards. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My background is I have a degree in English from Emmanuel College, a master's degree in reading from Suffolk University, and I became an administrator of special education through a program at Bridgewater State University. I have 36 years experience in education. I started off in Somerset as a reading teacher, and then I went to Westwood, Massachusetts, where I spent the next 35 years, first as a special education teacher and then as a department head of student services. I'm the president of the Swiss Beach Improvement Association, and I'm a member of the Wareham Beach and Tourism Committee. My perspective on education scans 4 decades. That's a pretty long time. And I'm retired now, retired teacher. During my tenure, state and federal regulations governing special education students were passed. We always had to be changing with the laws. In my job as Department Head of Student Services, I was responsible for hiring, training, supervision, and evaluation of more than 30 staff. I developed all of the special education programs for the middle school. I've always been an advocate for students, and I pride myself on being able to work with families. I worked on teams, and I was skilled at bringing divergent parties to a consensus, one that benefited the student. I was responsible for preparing the budget for my department and living within that budget, and I'm familiar with many kinds of budgets. I was very successful in implementing many cost-cutting measures. I worked with other towns in my collaborative to share resources. I developed in-house programs to stem the tides of students who had to go out for requiring outside placements. One particular event that I'm proud of happened in my last year. The elementary director hired a very costly outside agency to come into the elementary schools and provide program for students with autism. When they were ready to come into my school, I developed an in-house program for these students when they entered the middle school, which saved the school $250,000. That was my parting gift to Westwood. Let me tell you what I bring to Wareham. What I bring to you is an understanding of the structure of schools, a knowledge of school laws, an understanding of the constraints in running schools, both legally and fiscally. What I see as the biggest problem in Wareham now is how to deliver a quality education and live within our budget. I am concerned about the issue of school choice and special education. This is what I believe in. We have to keep the interest of the students first and foremost. We have to work creatively and responsibly within our budget. And we have a responsibility to look at all options. This is what I've seen the last few months. We have an outstanding administrative team in place to support curriculum, to provide for special needs, and to provide a quality education for all students. The staff is highly qualified, talented, hardworking, and creative. Let me tell you why I'm running. I am running because I'm passionate about providing a good education for our children. I'm running because my background, experience, and my perspective would benefit Wareham. Quality education for all students is a concern, especially with the financial constraints the town faces. Before I decided to run, I did some research on how the school committee operates. What I found out, and this is very essential, is that the school committee, board of selectmen, and town administrator have a good working relationship between them. Thanks to Dr. Shaver Hood, Wareham has the infrastructure in place to support student achievement and train teachers. If elected to the school committee, I look forward to working with them. In the audience tonight, I have my new daughter-in-law, Ty Lee. She is in awe of our political process. She is from China, where they only have one political party, one point of view, and often one candidate. We are blessed to live in this country and blessed to have the right to vote. So I'm asking you all to exercise your right to vote and vote for me on April 7th. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julianne Cummings, and I'm running for Wareham School Committee. I am running for Wareham School Committee. I am a year-round resident for 20 years in this town, and my children and grandchildren attended all the Wareham schools. I'm running because I am deeply concerned about direction education is taken. The standards of Massachusetts had before Common Core were better. Their implementation required less intrusion in the lives of students and the parents, and they were ultimately less costly. To touch on it briefly, the standards have much more hype than truth. The standards claim to make students college ready, and this is true, ready for community college, not more for rigorous four-year colleges. The standards claim, informed by the standards of every state, does not mean it's reflective. So you might ask, what can I do this federal standards program from the Wareham School Committee be responsive to effects on parents and students? My personal background is customer service. I work for Chadwick's of Boston and as a van driver. So I've had a lot of opportunity to meet people and meet their needs. So I promise excellent constituent services for parents and students. One of our needs is accountability in spending. I will look over the school budget for prior years, access whatever mandates the baseline, followed by the cost for basic supplies, and then look for any programs that could shift funding to include partial revenue from the student or parent activities. What I'm looking for, opportunity to be an advocate for the educators closest to the students, their own parents. I also want to be an advocate for the teachers buried in mandates to see what actions our school system can take to expand their class time and reduce their administrative time. The best education is one that includes local parents and teachers. Too often, our local communities get mandates from above, and we are made to feel like they know better or that it is beyond our control. That will not be the case if I am your eyes and ears of the school committee, and that is why I need your vote April 7th. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff SWETT. Much to my surprise, I've been here since 1996. I know that still makes me a rookie for many of the people in this room, but my wife and I, my wife Judy of 38 years, have enjoyed it immensely. I enjoyed it so much. After a couple of years, I moved my parents up here, and my mother liked to tell me that it was the best decade of her life. Fortunately, I've lost both of them, but they had a wonderful time in Onset while they were here. I am a retired healthcare and education manager. I have retired down here, as I said, in the late 1990s, spent 6 years on the finance committee. I've been on the board of directors of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Boston. I did some tutoring at the Wareham Free Library, and since 2006, I've been on the Wareham School Committee with a one-year interruption. I really passionately, and yes, a lot of people perhaps share that passion, perhaps I show it more than I should, but I really passionately believe in the children of this town. I think they're enormously, they have achieved enormous success, and I think we owe them all the resources we can find in order to enhance their ability to be successful adults and independent people who don't have to live in your homes for the rest of their lives, which is unfortunately what happens to too many kids these days. That's a bit about my past. What I do now, I am on the board of directors of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. That is something I decided to do because I wanted to get closer to the state, which is where so many decisions get made that mostly influence us negatively. Unfunded mandates come to mind. We're all familiar with them. The school committee experiences them more than most. I lobby state officials. As chairman of the Cape and Islands section of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, I run annual legislator updates. I not only know Senator Pacheco and Representative Gifford Williams, I know the two chairs. There's something called the Joint Committee on Education in the legislature. Senator Sonia Chang Diaz and Representative Alice Pice are the co-chairs of that committee, and they are outstanding individuals. They need to hear the Wareham perspective, and I have worked tirelessly to make sure they do hear it. Unfortunately, not all communities are created equal. While I don't want to get into the weeds, as they say, I will tell you that Wareham's needs are different than other communities' needs, and the Chapter 70 formula, which we hear about all the time, is unfair to communities like Wareham, and it's very fair to communities like Weston. You may not know, but even that Chapter 70 formula, I really am getting into the weeds, but even that Chapter 70 formula, after they calculate it for Weston, they give them almost 20% of their budget, even though they don't need it. That has to change. There's a Chapter 70 commission, and MASC is actively involved in that. I have worked for the past 6 years to help implement a new teacher evaluation system, which I think is critically important. It has to be done well, it has to be done fairly, and it's been a joint effort of both our association and school management and myself as a representative of the committee. I give college and summer scholarships to our kids. I am the chair of the Gleason Family YMCA and on the board of directors of South Coast YMCA. Yes, you'll see a pattern. I love kids. I think they deserve our support, and anything I can do in this community to help them, I do. I am also on the board of directors and the treasurer of the New Bedford Symphony Orchestra. Yes, I love classical music, but it's also a nationally recognized source of education for young people, which not a lot of people know, and shame on us for not letting you know better. But it does a wonderful program for kids throughout the South Coast, including Wareham. I also happen to be, and this is perhaps my greatest love and pleasure and privilege, I happen to be the coach of the girls' high school tennis team. They are a joy, and then they go on to graduate and do great things as students that represent Wareham all over the country, and certainly all over this state. They are representing Wareham schools extremely well. I volunteer as a bus driver. 1 minute, okay. I also donate all my income associated with tennis back to the High School Boosters Club. I'm currently leading an effort to get three more tennis courts into the community. That will be partially funded by the CPA and partially funded by private funds. And if town meeting says yes, we're a go, and I hope to have them done this summer. If you don't get a chance to ask me a question or think of one after you've left the building, feel free to ask me any questions at all at electjeffswett.com. I'd be privileged to answer that question. Any question. I have 3 things that I really want to do. I want to continue the effort to get a good evaluation system into this system, and I want it not to include standardized testing. I want to increase the rigor and reduce costs associated with the school system. We have to do that. We have to downsize. And finally, I want to make sure that Wareham is heard by all those legislators that I just mentioned. And believe me, I have a way of getting people to listen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions for our school committee candidates? Bob, do you have a question? Come on. Okay, Mark, over here.
Many times, I include all of us, we feel that we're asking school committee people questions, and, that we all went to school. Sometimes we all know the answers, but not necessarily. Having served 15 years of the school committee, I came to realize, as Jeff realizes also, that the biggest budget buster that we face in Wareham is special education. And unfortunately, we have no control over this budget. It is mandated by state law, and a lot of people can understand why these costs have escalated. And perhaps, we know that when we were there, if we have a student that comes into the system and their education plan says, you will provide a $75,000 a year program, you will provide a $75,000 a year program. Do you have any ideas as to what you've done, Jeff, and also Judy, you have ideas, and Julianne, in terms of trying to bring more control to the special education costs that every community is facing, but it's especially hit the town of Wareham very hard?
Julie, I'm sorry, you're going to have to answer first, going alphabetic, as Jeff is the incumbent, he answers last.
Well, I have some information here. I really, I understand.
Sorry.
All right, the special needs is a sensitive issue. Services are determined through an individualized education plan, where the parents and district work as a team in agreeing what is needed for the child to access. The thing is, I've went to a couple school committee meetings, and I'm aware of all these special needs for these students. And I'm very passionate because I've had a son that's got dyslexia and all that, and how frustrated they are. And I know a lot of grandparents and parents that bringing up grandchildren that have all these needs. And I really don't know too much about it, but I do know that there is a budget, and it exceeds the amount that it needs to be done. And somebody can work on that budget, I feel. It's very important, and I'm very passionate with special needs kids because I did work with them. Thank you.
I know from my
Sorry.
I know from my experience that this often happens, and I know Wareham got whacked this year with the amount of students who needed out-of-district placements. I do know that the first year that the students come in, you know, they transfer in, that the sending town still pays for half of that tuition, and Wareham pays for the Wareham pays for the other half. And in my experience, this has happened to me also. What we've done is, when we start getting more than one person, more than a onesie, you look to have a program in your own district for that student. That's a cost-effective way of working with these problems. That's the best information that I have, and from my experience, that's what worked well.
Yes, Judy has a lot more direct experience than I do in this area. I can say that the superintendent and her staff are working diligently to try and reduce costs as we sit here tonight, because it is a budget buster. But to some extent, you can only do so much, meaning that the average percentage of kids across the Commonwealth with special needs is about 17%. We're over 23. So just the fact that we have that higher percentage identified puts us in trouble. While I respect the fact that there are things that educators can do to reduce costs, my focus is going to be on the legislature to honor their commitments to cities and towns like Wareham. You may not know that after 4 times the average cost of educating a child, something called the circuit breaker kicks in. Mm-hmm. The law says they're supposed to reimburse cities and towns 75% of all their costs after that amount. What the law also says, and be really afraid of legislation, because almost all of it says subject to appropriation. So they pass a law, they say that 75% of all that extra cost is going to be reimbursed to you, and then they say, but this isn't such a good year, so this year instead of 75%, we'll give you 65, 55. I've even had it as low as the high 40s. It may be only 50% this year. The bottom line is the legislature passed a law, and then they didn't fund it, and people like me and others have to make them pay for that decision, and I intend to try and do that.
Another area that's costing us quite a lot is school choice. We're paying a lot of tax dollars, and a lot of our students are leaving, and so that money goes to other schools, school districts, and we're not bringing as many students in as we could. We have a level 1 high school. We should be attracting students. I'd like to hear what you all have to say about that.
I start? Judy. Okay. I know the figures for school choice in 2010 were 22 students, and this year it rose to 158 students at a cost of $919,000. And that the school choice revenue, the students we take in, we took in $134,000. So I think it's a really big problem. I think from looking at the schools in the last couple of months since I decided to run, all I'm seeing is so much good in the schools. I think there's a negative perception out there. And I just moved to Wareham permanently a year ago. I was a summer resident all my life, but I really didn't know about the schools, and I think I didn't even have a good opinion of the schools. And now I have the highest opinion of this school and the children in this district and the programs that are in this school. I thought I was going to go into the school and find out, oh, it needs this, it needs that, and instead I found out, well, it has this and it has that for programs. Great people, and as I already stated in my opening remarks, what I found out. So I think what we have to do is we have to try to find ways of changing this negative perception, maybe some more good publicity. I know I read articles in the local papers about what we're doing, but maybe the articles should read what Wareham is doing right. We should have a regular series of articles like that. And I know before I lived here, when I was getting the Boston Globe, you know, back in Walpole, I would read stories about Wareham that weren't very nice, and they made it all the way to the Boston papers. And I think that's where my impression of the schools was coming from, too. And I would like to see what we can do to try to get even a little article from the Globe to say what's right in Wareham now, to counteract what they used to write before. So I think it's a negative perception. I think we have to get out there, and I would also like to find out what other schools are doing to attract students to their program to make money. And that's a very important part. And I could do that as a school committee member. I could call people I know in other towns and try to find out some information on that. But I think attracting students in here and getting rid of that negative perception about the town, because it is not true. Wareham's a great place to live, and I'm so glad I moved here.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, I agree with Judy that this is first and foremost a marketing issue, but it seems really to be a long, to have had a long life. I have to tell you, the reason I'm here is because my wife ignored a realtor. And specifically, when we picked our home, the realtor said, "You don't want to live in Wareham." And I didn't know Wareham from Marion to Mattapoisett to anything. But my wife said, "I don't care. I love the home." And we really honestly didn't know much about Wareham. But the fact is, there is sort of an attitude that exists to some extent, certainly outside of Wareham, unfortunately to some extent inside of Wareham, and it lowers expectations, it is felt by our kids, and it's unacceptable. So we need to market ourselves better, we need to believe in ourselves more, and we need to send that message to every person with whom we interact. It's that simple. We have the basis for being really proud of this town, and we need to show it.
The parents I've talked to and grandparents for the last 6 weeks, there's parents that have kids go to Bourne in other schools because they're not happy with the programs they have here. It's a great town, and the schools are nice-looking schools. The teachers I hear are great, but for some reason they're just not happy with whatever's offered for them. And I find it's all over the place. There's all over. A lot of parents are sending them other schools, or homeschooling, or charter schools, and that has to, something has to be corrected on that in our curriculums and stuff like that.
And who else had their hand up? The gentleman here.
One of the things that I've experienced through the years is students that do well typically have parent involvement. And the question I have for the three of you is, what do you think we can do to get more parent involvement with students, with the programs and so forth, to enhance the education that they're getting?
It's a great question, Ron. One thing you can't do, unfortunately, is mandate. If you look at this country, I'm half Australian. My mother was appalled at the level of voting that occurs in this country. So there is a level of apathy, and now since the 1970s, and I could feel it when it happened, there's also a level of distrust of authority and leadership. And that combination produces a lack of involvement, and that includes parents. On the other hand, I will tell you, I had a conversation with the middle school principal last year, and literally half of our students at the middle school have a single adult in their house. So we do have struggling family support structures. And I don't think you can ignore the fact that I'm one of those kids that when I came home, my mother was baking cookies, right? That doesn't happen anymore because so many couples have to work in order to have a standard of living and to be able to be an independent family. So I think parental involvement is a symptom of a larger problem. It's economics, it's the struggling middle class, and I guess the solution to the huge economic problem that I just articulated is fundamentally more than just parental involvement in kids. But I think if the kids are excited and engaged, more parents will get involved. And I think with things like STEAM Academy, dual enrollment, and that's just the beginning of what I think our new superintendent is going to do. I think that will promote more engagement. We're putting in a cranberry bog, a research cranberry bog on the south side of the middle school. We're doing all sorts of exciting things, and I think parents will be engaged when their students are even more engaged.
Yes, there's a situation where all the kids are not happy going to school for some reason. They're having trouble with mathematics. They can't even figure it out. Even the parents can't figure it out. And the parents are working. If I was to be elected, I would encourage them to go to school committee meetings. And a lot of them are interested in their kids going to school and doing what they're supposed to do, but they have to work. Some of them are working 3 jobs just to be able to make it. And they are single parents, a lot of them, and some of them, some of them's handicapped or whatever, but they are bringing up their children to the best of their ability. And they just can't get to the parent conferences. So, but it is economic, a lot of it. Oh, sorry.
When I started working in education in the early 70s, we used to have coffee hours for parents to come, drop in, meet the teachers, or they'd come in after school. And we found that with more and more people working, as Jeff said, people weren't around to be there. I know we have programs at the night that can attract them to coming, but with 2 people working, like they say, it's difficult to get parents into school. I think I'd talk to the principals and find out what they've been doing to try to get parents and see, if there are any ideas out there that could work. But I know about the good programs that Jeff was speaking about. I think they're very exciting, and that might be a help to get parents in to see these programs. But it's just difficult in these times, and it's a wider issue than just a school issue.
Anyone else? Questions? Mark, over here, please. No.
I've got a question for all 3 of you candidates. I know Ms. Cummings is against Common Core.
Well, you can't tell anybody what they're for or against. Just
I'm
ask
sorry.
the question, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I need their opinion on this implementation of this federal program that's already been in place for 4 years, okay? And I'm definitely against it, okay? And I'm not going to waste anybody's time because I've done my research. But right now, our state governor, who has an open mind to the implementation further of Common Core, Charlie Baker, and his new education czar, Paul Sagan, are going to leave it open right now. So actually, we're faced with 2 standardized testing systems. One of them, which is already in place, MCAS, right? And the new one, which the federal government is trying to impose on us to change, which is Common Core, and the money that's going to cost. And we already know that it's already cost our state another $75 million because the Obama administration has only given the state $250 million. Okay, so we're faced with 2 systems now. So for all 3 are you for the MCAS system staying in place and maybe tweaking it a little, or are you in favor of the Common Core?
Okay. So
Who's first this time? Yep.
Common Core, MCAS, who's in favor? Not, is that your question? Okay.
I know how to. Am I first?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm for testing because, and I'm not saying it's Common Core, but we need consistent guidelines for students. We have to all have the same kind of education. Before these tests or these Common Core came about, people didn't get the same education in the state. Towns with more money would have better curriculum and better schools, and the poorer towns wouldn't. Then the students would go to college or go into work, and they weren't prepared. They think they were bright in one system and wonder why they got to college and have to have remedial courses, or they think they're prepared for the workplace, and then you hear they're not. And that's what the testing, the Common Core does, is make sure we all have the highest standards, and that's what we need, high standards. And the testing that goes along with it, I'm not for or against either test, but I know we have to make sure that people are learning what they need to learn at certain points. And it's certainly not the only kind of test we give the students. There's other testing that goes along during the year to find out how the students are doing. I do think the tests are too long. It might take up too much time. I'm not for that at all. And I know the NEA has come out, the National Education Association, and said that this testing is taking up too much time, and they would like to see more time on learning, and I support the NEA in this. I have the same point of view. And the NEA has also stated that they don't want any accountability for teachers, that you wouldn't evaluate teachers because that year your students didn't do well on the tests. Because I know from working in the schools, the teachers don't get back the test results till the following year when their students leave. So therefore, there wasn't much they could do about working with those students. So I am all for consistent standards. So that's basically it.
We could spend the rest of the evening on this subject. It is literally the hottest topic across the country in education, made the New York Times twice in the last week. First of all, a few facts. You cannot conflate Common Core and PARCC, MCAS, et cetera. They're entirely different issues. Common Core was developed by the state education officers across the country. It has been accepted by, I think, 46 out of 50 states, something like that. And it's been around actually for a long time, and it is not curriculum, it is standards. So we shouldn't think that these standards are controlling our curriculum. And also, if we wanted to, we could augment them. Common Core was critical. If you wanted to move from Massachusetts to, I shouldn't pick a state, but the southeast, shall we say, okay? Their standards are abysmal, and it shows up in their ability to perform well. Massachusetts leads the country, and it's high up, and it ranks very highly in the rest of the world in terms of how well its students does. But we decided to join this group of education people and develop a Common Core of standards. I think it was a great thing for the country to do, and I applaud the fact that Massachusetts used its outstanding record and expertise to be a part of that process. Then the federal government decided to bribe the states to go into more standardized testing and different standardized testing. It was a bribe. There was a lot of money involved, folks. And yes, Massachusetts got some. But keep in mind, this has nothing to do with Common Core. Now, the educators that I talked to actually love the idea of PARCC because it's a different way of testing. And the best way I can explain it is MCAS requires you to have knowledge, and PARCC requires you to really think. And that's more challenging, but it's also more fun to teach. That's what the teachers tell me. They love to teach in the PARCC environment. There's a problem, however, and that is our kids are probably not going to do as well on PARCC, and they're going to go home devastated by their results compared to MCAS. That may not be the reason to give up on PARCC, but it sure I was about to swear, sure is a very good reason not to use PARCC, or for that matter, MCAS, as a basis for evaluating an individual teacher. I am absolutely opposed to the use of standardized testing to evaluate the individual teacher. I am totally in favor, however, of using it to evaluate a superintendent, because that's a large enough cohort of students so that you can say, you know, individual teachers have a small number of students, they come and go, et cetera, but if your track record on standardized testing is not very good, maybe the system as a whole doesn't have the amount of accountability that it should have and that parents expect. So this is a complicated issue. I could keep going. I know Nan is telling me you're done. I'll be glad to answer any question from anybody.
Well, I have something here that says, while it's true Wareham has no control over what national or state policy is, it does have control over how to respond to local curriculum content. It is not the duty of the school committee to be responsive to parent and student concerns and to make alterations that serve those needs when the top-down approach fails. And this is a top-down approach. The government is controlling the education. It is intrusive, and they're asking questions of the children in the park, things that goes on at home, asking if they have a weapon at home, stuff like that. And it's indoctrinating the kids about a lot of stuff that's going on in the government, and it needs to be, a lot of parents are opting out of PARCC, and it is Common Core. And MCAS would be better, but the testing we had years ago in the 70s and the 50s was probably very, very good at the time. And we probably could get something better just like that.
Anyone else? In the back, Angela, Mark, in the back.
This is a comment that it's very hard. I know I'm in the back here, but it's very hard to hear the people who are speaking because the microphones are not close enough to them.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
Sorry.
Okay. No, thank you. All right, so they're having difficulty in the back hearing, so y'all need to speak up, okay? Yeah, eat the microphone. Okay. Any other questions for our school committee candidates? Again, for this position, it is, what is it? 3 years, sorry, 3 years, and there are 2 positions, 3 candidates. So if you would all remember to vote, we'd appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a short 10-minute break, and then we will bring up the 2 candidates for the Board of Selectmen. Thank you. Could come back to your seats now. We have our final race for the evening. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Final race for the evening, Michael and Alan, if you would come up, please. And this is the race for the Board of Selectmen. Okay, if we could ask everybody to please be seated again. All right. Michael, I'll ask you to go first, as Alan is the incumbent, and you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself.
Very well. Alan, pleasure. Yes.
Okay, and then Alan, it'll be your turn.
Good evening, folks. My name is Michael Freitz, and I'm running for the Board of Selectmen in this great town of Wareham. A little bit about myself. As far as how I became associated with Wareham, it was a summer place for my family for many years, as it was for a lot of people in this town. And the last 10 years, I've been a caretaker. That's what I've been doing. I had 2 elderly aunts who lived in the town here, and I kind of made a promise to my Aunt Marie who is an inspiration to me. She was under the King administration, she was the highest-ranking woman official, and when Governor King was in office, she was the Deputy Commissioner of Public Welfare, and a true inspiration to me. My mother was 6 years old, and Marie was 18 when my grandmother passed away of cancer, and basically what happened was Marie paid her way through BC, and she was the breadwinner from the family, and she was always an inspiration to me. So the last 10 years, I've been taking care of them, and recently my Aunt Trudy passed away up here in Toby. That's been kind of tough for me. But as far as my experience goes and what I can bring to the town, okay, my entire career I worked in the railroad industry. In the private sector. So how does that correlate to how it would be good for the town? I worked in both union positions. I know that's not a big, with some people, but I started the railroad as a laborer, working in the IBFO. I moved on to the IBEW. Okay, my experience was mainly mechanical with commuter rail. That's where it started. And I worked from the bottom up, from a laborer into commuter rail, into mechanical, and maintaining the rolling stock that we had. I worked all the way up to the first quality assurance manager for the high-speed rail system, the first high-speed rail system in the country. My job encompassed, worked from Boston all the way down to Washington, D.C., and I would work with very large budgets. I had a lot of different positions in the railroad, and most of that was practical experience that you don't get anymore. For anybody who was military, the term Mustang, my dad, he was a lieutenant commander in the Navy, but he started as a poor guy from New Bedford and worked his way up, and that's what I did in the railroad. So in doing so, I worked in a lot of different departments. I have experience in dealing with various labor agreements, 26 different ones to be exact. When I was working in the railroad, and that's a tough thing, I'll tell you. Unions have a place, they certainly do, in America. So I'm a working class person. Let's go down the list here because, sometimes I'm all over the charts. In my last position, as I said, I was a manager of quality assurance, and basically I dealt with everything from line item budgets in the railroad, day-to-day operations. It was a tough industry to work because we had a lot of working class, and it was really, I'll tell you, it's a challenging position to work with people. Okay, and that's what I bring. That's what I bring to the town here. Let's see. Let's go down the list here. As far as businesses go, too, I had two successful businesses. I had locksmith businesses. They were small businesses, and so I dealt with budgets there and keeping costs under control, day-to-day operations. In this community, what I've been doing to give back to my community, I'm a staff officer in the local Coast Guard Auxiliary here. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I was able to secure classrooms over in the town of Marion in the Recreation Department. Excuse me, a little dry here. Sorry about that. I was able to get offices for us in the town of Marion Recreation Department. We serve Onset, we serve Wareham, and we serve Marion. We reach out to the recreational boating community, which is a big community in this area. We have more square miles of oceanfront property than any other community in Massachusetts. And I think that's something that that's something that we can definitely reach on to pull in various public interest in the community. I don't think we are so big that we have accommodations where we're going to turn this into a resort community. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll save time for questions. We have a big problem here too in this community with addiction problems with our youth. There's all sorts of things that are really taking its toll in the community. For one thing, I work with youth. I'm an avid sailor. I enjoy that. I work with a lot of people in the community that are having problems, and I get them out there, and we work in recovery. That's a big thing. The YMCA, I'm a very active member down there. I'm a strong pusher to get our youth involved in our communities, involved in politics. Youth in government is something that I'm really pushing. You know, as a selectman, what you get with Michael Freites is, I'm an online type of guy. Am I pushing it? I'm an on-time online type of guy. I be a person that is open to listen to all arguments for anything that I would vote for in this community. I don't, okay, sorry. No problem.
Good evening, I'm Alan Slavin. I'm your current chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to thank the OPL for running this event, as they have for a long time now. I'd like to thank all of you who've come here, taking your time out to do this, and those people on TV as well. I'm here to ask for your vote. I want to continue the progress that we've made over the last 3 years. When I ran 3 years ago, I said I would work with the Board of Selectmen to build trust, to be accountable, and to become a proactive Board of Selectmen. We've made great progress in those areas. Anyone coming before the Board of Selectmen is treated with respect, is no longer confrontational. We listen. We constantly tackle issues that have been pushed to the side. We also look at issues that have been ignored because of potential controversy. We have, through the work of our town administrator, brought almost every union contract in place to 2016. The last one is just waiting for a vote of the membership. 3 years ago, we were 4 to 5 years behind on every single union contract. The relationship with the town employees is no longer confrontational, no longer threatening. The same is true with the town's other boards, committees, and commissions. This is what you, the residents of the town, expected us to do. The Board of Selectmen has provided me with the opportunity to promote Wareham, to bring forth Wareham issues, and to work on regional solutions through my membership with the Plymouth County Advisory Board, through RESC, through SERPED. I currently serve on the executive board of the SERPED Commissioners. I am second vice president of the JTPG, which is a transportation group, and I'm also one of 4 selectmen on the MPO, which basically serves the 28 communities in Southeast Mass, which puts the TIP program for the towns. The TIP program is a transportation improvement program, which is where all the roads and construction work are basically settled and who gets what. These groups provide services from road construction, lower cost and health benefits, technical services, from regional purchasing to actual technical staff assisting. Excuse me a second. On zoning bylaws, charter and bylaws, traffic studies, master planning, economic development guidance. Wareham has become a very proactive member using and contributing to these organizations. The intern program I started 6 years ago involved the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. We now have basically Bridgewater State University is involved, as is Bristol County Community College. I have 2 more colleges coming online this year. These graduate and undergraduate students have provided our town with assistance in our accounting department, Board of Health, Planning Board, Water Pollution Control Facility, Clerk's Office, IT, GIS program, CETA, the Police Department, and our town administration. For the next 3 years, I will work with the Board of Selectmen to resolve our transportation problems, continue building a sustainable financial plan to make Wareham a place where people want to live and work and visit, where existing business will expand and new business will want to locate. We are a model, and we will be a model for the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. We've made tremendous progress toward that goal by the commitment of our town administrator, with the full support of the Board of Selectmen and all the town's employees in the financial departments. Mrs. Whiteside and I have been working on a sustainable long-term programs for both our COA and free library. No problem. Last issue on trash. The town of Plymouth has a trash and a trash disposal program. We are looking at that to see if we can basically assimilate that into the town of Wareham and offer it here, in addition to our CMAS program. We also have been working for about 2 years now with the Wareham Fire and Water District on a public safety complex, which involves obviously our harbor master, our EMS and police. Also, the Onset Fire and Water District is kept involved to know what's going on there. I promise to continue to work for the citizens of Wareham. I need your vote. Please exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, April 7th. Together we will work to continue to build a stronger, better community for all. Thank you.
All right. Do we have questions for our selectmen candidates? Oh, come on.
Oh, dear God, come on.
Okay. This gentleman first, and then over here.
I'm sorry, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Freites.
Yes, sir.
Got to be for both.
I probably wasn't clear on that. Any questions are to both candidates, and they have to do with the office, not questions to the individual. If you have a question for the individual, you can speak to them after the meeting, or after the...
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I can address this to both, if I could, please. With respect to budgets and experience with budgets and so forth, I would ask both of you. I heard, Mr. Freites, you have experience with Amtrak with budgets, and I know I've heard from Mr. Slavin in the past some of his dealings with business and so forth. Could you explain what you bring, what your strengths are in terms of budgets and financials and P&L and so forth that's going to help the town of Wareham?
No, the question is not about him working at the railroad. The question is how both of them, with their experience with budgets, will help the town of Wareham.
I thought that's what I said the last time.
What is P&L?
Profit and loss statements, for those that understand financials. Okay.
Certainly. My experience in working with the railroad, like I said, I held several positions, okay? And I had to deal with line item budgets in all departments, specifically mechanical, which is one of the most cost-consuming areas of the of rail industry. And transportation in itself is a public liability no matter what. So my experience in dealing with it is to work within the budgets and the restrictions I had. Of course, each department would work diligently to try to cost-effectively provide a budget for each division. My division was Boston when I dealt specifically with mechanical, and God, the line item budgets, endless. Was I able to stay in within budget? No, it's a tough pill to swallow when it comes to transportation. When it comes to a municipality, as far as scrutinizing and whatnot, I'm a person that's hands-on. I like to get involved. I like to take my experience that I had in the outside private sector, and I look at things. And when I have questions, I ask answers. One of my most favorite questions to ask is, if I don't understand, help me to understand. If there's something that I see that doesn't make sense, I will ask it. And it's going to, I'm sorry, did you want to add something to that?
No,
So
he
help.
doesn't.
Okay.
No, he doesn't. Michael, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Alan?
My background is real simple. I went to school for accounting, and then I went into business administration. I worked for a couple businesses. I used to do budget analysis. I basically, over the years, when we used to do for the sales departments, I would put the programs together. My budgets came in usually within 1% of the actual sales at the end of each year, which makes it a lot easier to run a business. I then went into my own businesses over the years, and obviously I had to run my own budgets, etc. Town of Wareham, I basically took over the capital planning with one of my friends, David Trudell, and we basically had to run 5-year plans for the town for capital planning. We brought back all the correct information for the town to realize how much we had in infrastructure needs. As far as currently with the town itself on budgeting, I'm probably the one member of the board that takes care of all the dollar information we do. I'm the one that works at the budget, works for the town administrator, works with the school committee, etc. So my experience there is in municipal accounting. It is nothing like regular accounting. Municipal accounting is a cash-based system. It has a lot of rules and regulations, and it takes years to figure it out. I am still learning.
Thank you both.
Anyone else have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
I would agree.
Julianne.
Thank you. In your capacity as selectman, is there anything that you can do to get the Council on Aging back on track? The last day is June 30th.
It's not a fair question because both people can't answer it.
either one?
I think you could
Okay, wait.
change the scope of the question, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't answer.
Yeah, no.
All right,
It's
so
not- it's
you're
not fair.
asking if as selectman,
Dear God. A little shell shock.
It's got to be you, Nan.
I'm sorry,
It's got to be you.
might be.
Directly across from this gate, I just couldn't block it off.
Oh, okay.
It's
All
just
right.
the electrical charge.
So what you're asking is if either candidate sees anything possible for re-implementing Council on Aging? Okay, okay. Alan, would you start, please?
Yeah, the budget is basically more or less set in place. What's happening with the Council on Aging, if you listened a little bit earlier, Mrs. Whiteside and I are working on a program right now, a short-term and a long-term program. The short-term program is to take the Hammond School, merge the Council on Aging as far as the facility in with the Boys and Girls Club, and provide a better facility. We're working on, with a couple of venture capital people to actually build the facility and put it through. It'll take a year or more to do that. The long-term plan is basically to look at the property we have on basically Viking Drive and eventually develop a community center which will have a Council on Aging, probably even a library, and as well as WCTV. That's a long-term 10 to 20-year goal. As far as fixing anything today, your setup as far as the Council on Aging goes is basically where it's at. I'm not sure, I don't think there's any extra money in the budget right now, and there's no place right now. So the answer is nothing this year. Next year, hopefully a whole different setup. It's not going anywhere. Yes, that's again, there's too much misinformation that goes through town. I wish people would take the time to ask the people who are in charge. The school department has certain part of the building. There's nothing leaving that building that's there right now. I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
As you're all aware, Alan is the incumbent, so it puts Michael for this question at a little bit of a disadvantage. But if you could answer the question as to what you would like to see, I think that would be appropriate.
I think as a town, we all are suffering from loss of services. What can we do to try to retain the services? Council on Aging, there are a lot of people involved that provide their services at no cost. I mean, I believe in consolidating our resources, our buildings, our infrastructure, and whatnot to do the greater good. You know, I've heard from several people in the Council on Aging as far as they're kind of upset to be thrown in the Boys and Girls Club. You know, when we have municipal buildings that are available, that we're heating, and that are available to us, and are just sitting empty, you know, some of that stuff I see as unfair. You know, if we have a building that, like the municipal services building, that we can house those services and provide the space needed. Then we should do that, most definitely. You know, I think that there were some drastic measures taken. There's some services we need in this town. There's consolidation is a big thing with me, you know. If we, you know, some of the things I believe in, I'm a big supporter of green power. I sail. So everything on my sailboat is green power. You know, I know a lot about my background with the IBEW when I was working in the railroad industry. I worked directly in various union positions as well, but I have a thorough understanding of how solar energy could benefit this town, and that was on my platform last year, if any of you remember. You know, we could be a spearhead in the state for green power, and I mean that reduces. You know, that puts money back into the town that we can spend in, you know, elderly services, in the library, this and that. Any way that we can consolidate, any way that we can save on our expenses in the town and put it back into services, I'm all for supporting. You know, I'm all for that. You know,
Michael,
yes, ma'am.
time is up.
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Over here, Mark. No, right behind you.
Right behind you,
Right
sir.
behind you.
I think just what you were talking about with the elderly, and I think also the kids get forgotten in this town. We used to be a retired town, now we're a family town. And I think, you know, we've talked about the school and things happening within the school. Years ago, when I brought up my kids here, and I've always lived here, they had a youth program where the kids would get just a little bit of money, and maybe to look into those programs that worked, because my children, and way back, all those kids that graduated are doing well, and they're in good positions. And part of that was from the youth program that they used to get. And even though they got paid a little bit of money, but if you did well in school, then you could work for that youth program. Why couldn't we look forward to that? Because if we're going to make a better town, we have a great town, but if it's going to be better, if we put those kids to work or to goals for doing things within the town, why can't we start something different than any other town? Why do we have to always follow other towns?
Okay.
Good question.
Michael, you're first this time.
Very well.
You answered first last time, right? Okay. You're first this time.
Excellent assessment, and you know, we are really suffering, and all of the surrounding communities as well. Our youth are falling apart. You know, that's one thing that I want to really. You know, when I was young, growing up, you know, we had a polling spot in my school in Weymouth, and I sat there and I used to gaze, and I couldn't wait until the day I could vote. But we're losing the interest with our youth. We're losing the interest with our younger voters. You know, with the working class, we discussed this earlier in the evening. You know, there's a lot of single-parent families. There's a lot of values. I mean, when I grew up, we had 4 or 5 kids to a family. You know, and that's dramatically changed. I mean, the average family is a couple kids. You know, and the various costs associated with our school budgets and whatnot. Yes, as a community, we should do a lot to be reaching out to help our youth. We have a huge addiction problem in this town and our surrounding towns. You know, and we need to do something with our youth to get them active and to show them, get them involved in politics early. You know, I am for ordinary people governing ourselves. You know, that's the very basis of our Constitution, ordinary people governing ourselves. And we need to step up, all of us, in different ways to get involved. I mean, to provide the best services. And sometimes that's through volunteer work, you know, and otherwise, you know, it's something we all need to work together toward, you know. But our youth is something that we're really lacking on, you know. Our communities, you know, I support businesses to the sense that, you know, if they're providing good jobs for us, providing good jobs with benefits, providing things that are going to benefit our community, that's what I support, not just...
15 seconds.
Yeah, I'll stop it at that, but I think as a community, we need to work together, you know, separate all in a bipartisan way. We need to work together, and we need to do good for our community, and we all have to pitch in a little bit there. That's something that has lost its place. Time. There's too many people that just don't care anymore.
Yoo-hoo.
Certainly, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alan?
Sharon, to answer your question, the Boys and Girls Club, which is based out of New Bedford, which Wareham has a branch, is going to continue expanding the programs for the children. Obviously, the school department has mentioned the programs they need to do as well. We all know about the opiate abuse, you know, with heroin, et cetera. There's programs, the town just got a $550,000 grant as part of the program from New Bedford, which there'll be programs coming here, which I think is really a bigger issue coming through. Barbara Sullivan, who really ran the Boys and Girls Club for years, has sat down with me, and we've been discussing brand new programs for kids, and we'll be announcing something with Barbara probably in a week or so. So your question that you have is basically going to be answered very shortly.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, no. Mark? Hello? It's Jamie. Jamie, right there.
Hi. Personally, I am frustrated with talking about all the things we don't have, what we've cut, what will be cut, where we're going from here, what we're not going to have anymore. Anybody who's been to town meeting, any of the past town meetings over the past few years and beyond, knows that we have a revenue problem right now. Mm-hmm. What do we do about that? What can you, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, if you're reelected or if you're elected, do about our revenue problem? Is there anything you can do, and how can you help that issue?
Okay, thank you. Alan, you're first.
Probably one of the most difficult things, which is which I go up to the State House, I work with different regional groups. I'm constantly lobbying. We're going to have actually the Lieutenant Governor. I've made arrangements with 7 other towns plus Wareham. Lieutenant Governor is going to be here either April 16th or 17th. I've put together a meeting so we can sit and talk all the towns about our issues. A lot of our issues are unfunded mandates, as we all know, partially funded mandates, just changing rules and regulations that cost expenses. We also have formula issues. Our Chapter 70 formula, as Jeff Swett mentioned, doesn't work for us at all. It penalizes Wareham $2 to $3 million a year. The property values along the coast here with all our multi-million-dollar homes also affects the Chapter 70 formula as well. We also have issues with Chapter 90. Because we have over 40% of our roads are private roads, they don't count till the Chapter 70 dollars. So we don't get enough road money for what we need, yet everybody wants us to fix the private roads, and that's why we have issues. The overall problem on revenue is you have coming in right now on 195, Route 25, Route 28, you're having the beginning of very large retail complex developing. This complex will develop from that area all the way down to Route 58. There's pieces coming in, there'll be revenue coming in, but everything takes a year to 2 years after they're built before you see a revenue stream. The hotel will be up and running April 1st. The hotel will be a very large source of revenue for the town. It will bring a lot of tourism in. Most people don't realize Marriott has a special program for people who are veterans in the services. You have Otis Air Force Base with a cemetery. There is a lot of people that constantly come to the cemetery. There's no place close by to go. Marriott offers a discount to those people. You'll see a lot of people coming very quickly. I expect to see that hotel probably booked up 90% or more all the time. We're working with other programs with our local businesses to see how we can help them expand. We've offered TIF programs to a couple of the businesses to keep them here and to expand. So we'll just keep working where we are. It's a slow process. Nothing is fast. There's no white knight coming down the road to help us. The state's not going to help us, really. The federal government's not. We have to help ourselves. Basically, I'm looking at everybody here. You all have to help make this work. Thank you.
The hotel, you know, it's very hard to see any site survey on that as of yet. You know, is my impression of the hotel that's going to be opening up isn't going to be a major tourism thing, more so a medical hotel for medical tourism. I'm really happy to see you know, some medical practices and some good jobs coming in that line. We are the second largest bariatric center in the United States, if anybody doesn't know that, next to Tufts. We have some great surgeons in town who, the main use for that hotel, as far as I can see, is going to be medical tourism, you know, and that's people coming in for bariatric surgery, and that's really exciting because there's jobs there. There's decent paying jobs that are going to pay people a decent wage with benefits, you know, and those are things that, you know, if you want to start looking at ways to increase the revenue, you know, people aren't giving in to overrides and stuff like that. It's just not working. I can't support any override in this town whatsoever until such time as we really work together as a town to consolidate things. We're on a start on some things. The board has worked to consolidate maintenance services for our vehicles and stuff, but there's a lot of other things we need to look at. The infrastructure is dilapidating on some of the buildings. We need to consolidate. You know, I think a public safety consolidation and use some of the less expensive buildings. Of course, like ambulances and stuff, we have to have them on both ends of town. We do have a pretty good building down near Onset we could use for a dispatch, but I'd like to see a new public safety building built and house, consolidate some of these things, because some of these buildings are falling apart, and I don't see the revenue coming in. I mean, we're at level funding. I just don't see, you know, the cost of living is not increasing as fast as the cost of our services, and it's just going to create more and more financial burden. So I agree with Mr. Slavin in that you know, it's it's like anything else. I mean, it's long term. We can be wishful. I don't think we should take gambles on certain things, though. You know, I worked in. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, yeah, quite all right.
Thank you. I'd like to understand from each of you, how are you going to work as selectmen with the districts? And how are those, how do you work with or without the districts, I guess?
Okay. It's a question which everybody has different thoughts about. I've been working with the Wareham Fire and Water District, with the Onset Fire and Water District for about almost a year and a half, having joint meetings to talk about things, how we can work together to find ways to save money when we have projects that basically mix together and stuff. The districts themselves were formed back about 1900 and about 5 or 6 years later. The districts are put together by the vote of the local people in those districts. If you wanted to, people talk about combining districts. If you actually look at the cost when you combine them and the new requirements when you do a combination, there's really no cost savings. The districts also do not have Proposition 2.5 issues, as the town does. If the districts were ever to be merged into the town of Wareham, you would end up with basically your fire department and your water department scratching for every dollar, not being able to keep up or anything. In the town of Wareham, there has been no basic real effort by anybody to combine them or anything. The two districts are very happy with where they are. They're the ones that voted for it. They're the ones that have to take care of it. The Board of Selectmen have no say, no input on the two districts.
And I would agree. I've done a little bit of research there. The laws are so archaic, and I agree there. I think, my vision at one point early on, I get angry, because, there's a lot I don't understand, and I will ask questions, like I said, whenever I don't. But I've educated myself a little bit there, and, my way of coming across was kind of like Governor Wells was when we had the registry police, the Metropolitan Police, and the Capitol Police, and, I just automatically, my mind was like, merge it, there are certain things in this town that we can work together to merge, and like I say, infrastructure, sharing buildings, whatever we can do to put more revenue back into services in the town is a good step in the right direction. I would agree, at this point, I've done a little bit of research, and we're kind of like in irons there. There's no changing it. It is what it is. Wherever possible, though, I'm a strong proponent in trying to consolidate things, and infrastructure, like I said, is a complete mess. We need to work together as town departments in any way we can, to do this, so we can take to put money back into the town to restore services that we need. I'm not, I'm really teed off about the library situation. That's something that it was a good spot for our youth. It was a great spot for our seniors and whatnot, and our adult. It had a nice meeting room. There's some certain there are some definite areas that we need for our community, and the library is one of them. I'm really teed off about that. And the private sector is not going to, in any way, support that long term. We need to find ways that we can support these things long term. And yes, I'm sorry. Yes, certainly.
Does anyone else have a question? In the back.
Thank you, Paul Ciccatelli. I was just wondering if either of you have any ideas on regionalizing anything. I mean, the purchase of bituminous between, multiple towns. I mean, Lord knows the roads are going to need some serious work this year. Everybody's calling it Afghanistan out there because the potholes are being filled, and the filled parts have been pulled out as fast as they've been put in. And I'm just using that as one simple example. Is there any hope to get any kind of savings out of regionalized purchasing or some sort of regionalized services or whatever? I mean, this basically goes back to what Jamie's question is. I mean, we have a revenue problem. Everybody knows it. Do you foresee any of that kind of stuff happening? Is the state behind any of that?
We do have a state bidding system, and a lot of towns use it. I know our neighboring town, Marion, uses it. I'm not too sure to what extent Wareham is using that, but most definitely. I mean, these are things I'm talking about as far as consolidation. If we aren't using the state bidding system currently for various supplies and whatnot, we should be. I try to do some research there, and sometimes that's kind of a tough issue in itself. I'm a big one on transparency. I'm a big one on when it comes to making decisions. I'm a big one on writing my opinion on decisions and putting that out there to the public. You know, any vote that I make in this town, I assure you one thing. Now, I could say I'll accept responsibility, but what am I going to do? Am I going to pay if it doesn't work out the way I say it's going to? You know, that's something that just can't. I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, and any more than Mr. Slavin can say be responsible for this. Well, what are you going to do if it doesn't work? We got to be very cautious in everything we do. We have to be very proactive in consolidating any cost whatsoever. You know, so if we're not involved in the state bidding process and using it to the optimal effectiveness, then you know, that's something I would look at and I would insist upon. You know, I would push that policy. You know, that's those are huge cost-effective measures. Yes. I hope I answered your question.
Paul, what happens right now is SERPED, as I mentioned before, has regional purchasing programs available to all 28 communities, so there is savings that way. The town uses that. The town also uses the bid list. There's some stuff you don't even have a bid list. You just have people that have been certified to buy from. There are a lot of times when the town can go out on its own and actually find a lower price, so it requires a lot of work either way. We have, as I said before, we're forming basically the 7-8 town center here, where we're all working together. We basically go out, and if we're going to buy an expensive piece of equipment like a VACCON or something for $300,000, we're actually going out and asking the towns around us, do you want to share the cost? And one town will buy one piece, one town will buy another piece. The one piece that I've been banging at for probably, I'm going to say 7 years now, going back to when I was on the Capital Planning Committee, even the Planning Board, was the purchasing agent for the town. And when I say the town, that means every single department in the town. When you have purchasing by the school department, when you have purchasing by different departments, if they don't centralize it all, sometimes you end up with waste and extra. The town administrator has basically made a commitment to put a purchasing agent in within the next year. We're trying to fit it into the budget. That purchasing agent will probably pay for his salary plus in the first year alone. So there are pieces in place. It is a complex system because, again, a lot of times on the state bid list and stuff, it's not your lowest price. And the town administrator is the procurement officer, but he does have individuals purchasing for him, but we do need a purchasing agent.
Very good, yes.
Going once. Going twice.
Sold American.
All right. Thank you very much to our two candidates.
Thank you all.
Please remember to vote on Tuesday, April 7th.
Please do. Mr. Slavin? Good evening.
Good evening, kid.